Good morning and welcome to today's webinar. Today we will be discussing professional presence. My name is Patrick Allen and I am the Program Manager for Kent State's Center for Corporate and Professional Development's Public Open Enrollment Programs. Our center specializes in providing employee development for partnering organizations in Northeast Ohio and around the country. We offer training as public open enrollment programs delivered in Independence, Ohio, and also on-site customized programs delivered at your location. I am joined today by Kent State facilitator Christine Zust. I will be serving as your host, and Christine will be our presenter for today. Christine has more than 25 years of experience in communication and marketing management in private and public sectors. She specializes in strategic communication planning and positioning, consultation, and also provides corporate facilitation and professional development programs. She works with executives, emerging leaders, and management teams to develop credibility and clout with key clients and constituents externally, as well as to develop more productive leaders and teams internally. Her unique facilitation skills and strategic planning and brainstorming sessions help clients to develop a clearer vision of their potential. She received a Bachelor of Arts degree in Public Relations from Kent State University and a Master of Arts degree in Interpersonal Communication from Bowling Green State University. Christine is also the author of a book, Everything I Do Positions Me: The Simple Path to Professional Success. In addition to today's Professional Presence program, for Kent State, Christine facilitates programs such as delivering powerful presentations and Each One Teach One, engaging employees in experiential learning. Everyone in attendance today has been muted to avoid background noise from any of the over 300 registered participants. We do encourage you to ask questions at any point during the hour. You can submit your questions in writing using the control panel on the right side of your screen. I will present your questions to the presenter as time permits throughout the webinar. There is a handout available to you that summarizes today's presentation. It is located under the Handouts tab on the control panel. We encourage you to download it and take notes during today's presentation. We are recording today's webinar and you will receive an email with a link to the recording after we conclude our time together. Before we begin, I would like to start by asking a question of you, the audience. How important is professional presence to your career advancement? You can choose one of the items on the screen and then I will present the results in about a minute or so. Okay, we see that about 77% of the participants agree that professional presence is very important to career advancement. Now that we have the results, I would like to introduce Christine Zust.
Thank you, Patrick. Welcome, everyone. I love starting off with a polling question like that because we oftentimes forget how much control we have over our career advancement. And it can begin with focusing on something as simple as our own professional presence. Susan Bixler, the author of the book on professional presence, which came out a few decades ago, defines professional presence as this. And when you read this definition, there are several words that really come out to me, and we'll go through these. The first is poise. Now, when we think about poise, we might think of grace or elegance. Some of us may remember there was a time when finishing schools were very important to a young person's development, a place to go to where you could learn more about how to behave in public, how to have certain etiquette. The second is self-confidence. And where does that confidence come from? Well, some people are born with it. For the rest of us, we have to work at it all of our lives. I have a great niece who was born with self-confidence. She's 22 years old now, enrolled in college. She has been that same confident person from the time she was carried in her dad's arms. And for the rest of us, we have to work at that self-confidence. And what helps us to develop that confidence is experience. Sometimes it's our lived experience in our personal lives. Sometimes it's our career experience, our level of knowledge. That the more that we know, the more confident we become in our professional roles. The next is control. Some of you, I'm sure, are familiar with the work of Daniel Goleman on emotional intelligence, a book that came out several decades ago. He really paved the way for helping us understand that as human beings, we have to remind ourselves that we carry those emotions with us. And some people represent themselves more effectively. Some people can control those emotions more than others. Other people have difficulty controlling those emotions. I don't know about you, but in the professional work environment, flying objects is not something that is usually included in the professional environment unless you're a basketball player or a baseball player. But when we've heard stories of bosses throwing items or people yelling, well, those people don't have much emotional control over themselves. And those are the people who most coworkers don't want to work with, or bosses or supervisors or C-suite may look at them and say, oh, we can't put that person in front of a client, or we can't have someone with that erratic behavior in charge of this important client meeting. So that's what control means. And style, each and every one of us possesses our own unique and distinctive professional and personal style. Much of that is seen, the clothing that we wear, how we interact with other people. And people are watching us all the time. We all have different styles. And the last two words I want to focus on are empowers. And when we have this blend of poise, self-confidence, control, and style, we do feel empowered. We feel that we're in charge of being able to go into any situation and command that respect from people who are in the room with us. I wrote an article almost 2 decades ago on how leaders can command, not demand, respect. And there's a huge difference between the two. That when you command respect, it means that you are showing respect to other people first. And you have to earn that respect from people over the years. This is the definition of professional presence that was presented by Susan Bixler. We'll be talking more about this as we go through today's program. This has been my professional mantra for more than a quarter of a century. Everything I do positions me. Think about this statement for just a moment. Reflect on what this statement means to you. Think about the ways that you position yourself every day with coworkers, your boss, clients, when you're out in the community representing your organization, when you're involved on volunteer boards or task forces. Think of all the things that you do that positions you in the minds of everyone who you're meeting. Let me tell you where this mantra came from. Here's my story. I worked for an organization that had hired a new president. Our chairman of the board had decided to host a breakfast meeting with our board of directors so that they could get to know this new president. Imagine the room where the tables were lined up in a large square so that everyone in the room could see this new president. I was sitting to his left, the board chair was sitting to his right. Throughout the entire breakfast meeting, from time to time, the president would turn to me and ask me specific questions about who was in the room. He'd ask me, who's the woman in the red suit? What does she do? What's her role in the community? What is her role on the board? Who's that distinguished gentleman with the white hair and the glasses and the gray suit? What is his role? And he would do this. He would go around the room and ask me who these individuals were. I would give him the appropriate information. Like any new employee with a new boss, you want to make a good, positive first impression. After the breakfast meeting, a longtime friend of mine and colleague came running up to me. She said, Christine, I like what I see. Well, I'm thinking, does she like my suit? Does she like my new haircut? And then she said, I like the way you've positioned yourself. I can see that the new president is relying on you for information, that he's treating you like a trusted advisor. Oh, I'm so happy for you. I'm excited. Congratulations. You'll do great. She went her way. I went mine. When I got home that night, the words that she said to me kept rolling around in my head. I like the way you've positioned yourself. No one had ever said that to me before. Then I started thinking where I was sitting next to him, what I was doing throughout the meeting. I was being of service to him, answering his questions. I realized at that moment that people are watching our every move, aren't they? Especially in our careers, in our profession. They're looking at us for a variety of reasons. Is that person promotable? Would I trust that person with a large piece of client business? That everything that we do, how we behave, how we act, the clothing we wear, the people we hang out with, the educational experience we have, our knowledge that we've acquired throughout our life and throughout our profession, any special certificates we carry, leadership positions in the community, everything that we do positions us. At that moment, this mantra came to me. And as Patrick already said to you, this is the title of my book. Everything I do positions me the simple path to professional success. Because I feel so strongly about professionalism and professional presence. Because I've seen too many people sabotage their own success because they don't pay attention to the fact that everything I do positions me. Now let me add a few more mantras for you that you can add in your handout, where we're looking at this from a little bit different perspective. The second is, everything I don't do positions me. Give that some thought. You promise someone something and you don't deliver. Well, if you do that once, people might forgive you. If it's a repetitive bad habit of yours, then they're going to start questioning your credibility. The third one, everything I do positions my company. You don't just represent yourself, you represent your employer 24/7, 365. Whether you run into someone in the supermarket, if you're out jogging in the park, you still represent your company or organization. And the last, everything I don't do positions my company. That people may think something of you if you make those promises, but I'll tell you, if it's an important client and you repeatedly are going through using those bad habits, then they're going to start wondering, I don't know if I want to do business with this company or with this organization because I'm just not getting the attention that I need. I challenge you for the next week to take this mantra, everything I do positions me, write it on an index card in bold letters, look at it every morning before you go into work, before you pick up the phone to call an important prospect, before you're going to an important business meeting, before you're going out into the community. And at the end of that week, see if you have experienced a mind shift. Because once you lock into this mantra, everything I do positions me, you will look at yourself in a very different way as a professional. I guarantee it. Because it's been my mantra for more than 25 years. It has served me very well because I'm constantly aware of my behavior and my actions. Now let's shift into the professional's code of ethics. Every field of study for professionals, whether it's the American Dental Association for dentists, or the American Medical Association for physicians, or the American Bar Association for lawyers, whether you're in accounting or marketing or supply chain management, whatever your profession is, there's a certain code of ethics that you operate by, especially when you join professional organizations, where you have those standards, where you're raising the bar for yourself as a profession within that industry. I created this professional's code of ethics for all professionals because based on my experience, the kinds of individuals who I have worked with over the years, I've noticed people who do really well with their ethical side, and then I've seen other people that don't do very well. And I know you've met a few of them as well throughout your life, both the pro and the con of people who lead an ethical life or have very high standards, or people who don't. Let's go through these together. The first is being respectful of others and oneself. We really have to start with respecting ourselves as a professional before we can really pass that respect on to others. When I'm in the presence of someone who respects me, I can feel that respect. They're respecting my time. They're respecting my intelligence, my position. How would it feel to others if you respected them? They would feel that you were respecting them. Because when we treat people with that utmost respect, it makes a difference in how we establish that relationship. I have a very dear friend of mine where we don't always see things eye to eye, and she says we agree to disagree. We can still respect each other's opinions. We can still respect who we are as individuals. That's so important in the world today, which is why it's number one on the list. I tell people when they ask me personally how my husband and I have managed for almost 39 years to stay married, I say, number one, our relationship began with mutual respect. And when you have that respect and you share it with other people, it just makes the relationship blossom and grow. The second is being credible. I tell people never, ever, 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 ever compromise your credibility. Because in our professional arena, think of how long it has taken you to get to where you are. You have a certain level of integrity that comes with everything that you've done, the good work that you have done. We read it in the papers, we hear it on the news of people who make one false move, one wrong step, where they lose that credibility. Can you get it back? Sometimes. It takes time. I don't ever want to run that risk, though, for my professional credibility. That means that I have to do the work that I say I'm going to do, deliver it on time, give people what I have promised them. Don't ever underestimate your level of credibility, because it is so deeply linked with your character and who you are. Number 3, when you have high business standards and ethics, you become that person who everyone wants to serve on the committee with. You become that person who everyone wants to work with. I just wrapped up a very important client project a couple of weeks ago. I had the pleasure of working with a young woman in her early 30s. This young woman had so much on the ball, and her high business standards and ethics were covered in every single part of the project that we worked on together. She was right there with me. I never had to assume anything, whether something was going to get done, because she had very high business standards and ethics. I tell people all the time, because I'm a baby boomer, and sometimes baby boomers and Generation X can be very judgmental about younger generations. And I tell them that every generation has its strengths and its weaknesses, that don't just say, well, this whole generation is this way or this whole generation is that way. Because I've heard it from some of my older colleagues that, well, those young people, they just don't have the same business standards and ethics that we do. Wrong. I tell them that I see it in action all the time, like I did with this young woman who I had the pleasure of working with on this project. She was phenomenal, and I can guarantee you that she is going places in her career, because her boss kept telling me through this project, I picked a really good one, didn't I? And I said, yes, you did, because those business standards and ethics are woven into everything that she does. How do you show your business standards and ethics on a day-to-day basis? Number 4, being selfless and not selfish. When you're in the presence of someone who puts other people's needs first, you feel like you're the only person in the room. People have said of charismatic leaders that that's how charismatic leaders make them feel, when you feel like you are the only person in the room. And I really do believe that part of our role as human beings is to help one another, to get outside of our comfort zone and reach out and help people in times of need. I have experienced people, and I'm sure you have as well, who have said, that's not in my job description. I'm not supposed to be doing that. I'm not going to help her. I've worked with people like that. I've also worked with people who didn't have to help me, yet they chose to. It wasn't in their job description. It wasn't expected of them, and yet they made themselves available to me at a time of need. I know we're all busy. We have too many meetings. We have heavy workloads, very full plates. Yet, when you show other individuals that random act of kindness, being selfless and not selfish, and reminding people that you're there to help them, it will make all the difference in how people see you as a professional. Ask yourself that question. Am I selfless? Or are there times when I'm a little bit selfish and I could open things up a little bit to help the people around me? Number 5, trustworthy. Where does trustworthiness come from? Where does it come from? When do you know that you can trust someone or when someone can trust you? You have to prove yourself in action, that when someone says, please don't share this with anyone else, I'm telling you this in confidence, that's exactly what you're supposed to do with that information, not go out and share it with other people. When we look at the way confidants work, we have to trust them with everything. When I was president of a community organization years ago, a very dear friend of mine said to me, "The queen keeps her own counsel." And I had to pause for a moment. What does she mean by that? The queen keeps her own counsel. That when you look at leaders who are at the top, the very top, that there are very few people that they hold confidence in. They choose their confidants very, very carefully. Think about who your confidants are, people who you trust. Think about people who trust you, and why do they trust you so much? This last item, never gossips or talks about people. I have to share some personal experiences with you on this one because we have all learned at one point or another in our lives. Sometimes we learn the hard way. There's so much gossip that exists in the world today. It's a very negative way to go through life, yet some people thrive on gossip. And there are ways that we can avoid gossip. Just don't participate in it. I got caught in a triangle of a web with 2 coworkers. This was a long time ago when I was just starting out my career. It was not healthy to talk about each other. My assistant and I would talk about this other coworker, and then he and she would talk, and then she would tell me what he told me, and then I would get angry, and he would get angry. It was awful. After I went through that experience, I promised myself I will never, ever, ever let this happen to me again. And when I hear people chit-chatting in offices, if I'm passing through a client's office or something, I think to myself, oh, why are you wasting your time? The best way to not gossip is to don't initiate it and don't participate in it, because it doesn't do anybody any good. And when you gossip about people, then people wonder whether they can trust you. I have one colleague of mine who talks about other colleagues that she's supposedly friends with. Well, what do I start thinking about her after a while? How much can I trust her? Think about where your trustworthiness comes from and how you demonstrate that to the people you work with. Number 6, being a positive role model. Do you inspire and motivate other people? Do they tell you that they admire the work that you've done? Have people shared with you, "You're my hero, you're my mentor. I want to be just like you when I grow up"? What is it about you that makes them feel that way? I've had very positive role models in my life, people who I have looked up to. I never wanted to exactly emulate them because that can get us in trouble too. You still have to be your most authentic self when you're building your own role model. What kind of a role model are you? Do people come to you for advice? Do they come to you for greater knowledge? Because when you can share that knowledge with others, that's when you become that true role model.
Okay, at this time, I would like to present another polling question to our audience. And that is, in addition to those characteristics that Christine has already identified, what other characteristics do you feel are important to professional presence? And on this one, you can vote on as many as you feel applicable. Again, I'll give you about a minute and then show the results. Okay, and there are the results of the poll. It looks like good judgment and honest are the leaders, but it looks like pretty much everybody feels that they're all important.
Well, excellent, because you can see based on the handout that these are all parts of the professional's code of ethics. So number 7, good judgment. I don't know about you, but I really like to associate myself with people who have really good judgment, that they make good choices in the business world and also in their personal lives, because they're clear thinkers. They look at things very objectively. They try to look at things objectively. They give things thought before they take any action. Those are the people that I want to include on my committees or who I want to work on projects with. Where does your good judgment come from? Do you have moments in your professional career where you can look back and you can say, these are the pinpoint areas where I can go back and say, for sure, I made the right choice? I know for me, I have several that show up on my professional continuum where I can say I used really good judgment there. Now, were there times when I didn't think things through? Of course. When I was starting out my career. Then once you get into that rhythm of how things work, you understand more about how to take your time and really practicing good judgment. Number 8, honesty. Well, Abraham Lincoln is the historic figure most often linked with honesty. And it really goes hand in hand with other things we talked about: trust, integrity. When you're honest, people can sense that honesty in you because you have no hidden agendas. You're communicating with people in a very open, straightforward fashion. I will add one caveat, because there are times in the workplace environment where we need to ask ourselves how honest we need to be with people to get the kind of result that we want. And sometimes we have to be not 100% transparent, but have just a little bit of softness to that honesty. I mean, let's face it, if someone asks you, do these pants make me look fat? You're not going to say, yes, they do, unless you're a really good friend. If it's your boss asking you that question, you're going to look at that question in a very different way. Wow, how do I answer this? They're attractive on you, boss. So we have to couch those comments and ask ourselves, how honest do we have to be? Because we can be 100% total, straightforward, honest. And in some situations, we have to soften that honesty a little bit, knowing who the person is, how the person might take the news, and what our outcome is. Number 9, diplomatic. When you look at career diplomats, these are people who can handle just about any situation smoothly, flawlessly, effortlessly, because they have conditioned themselves to behave that way. Diplomats who work in the international arena are required to know all of the values and mores of the country that they're dealing with. Now, I will say we work in a much more diverse workplace today than we did 10, 20, 30 years ago. Many of our coworkers are from other countries who are sitting next to us. It's almost like we have to put that diplomatic hat on to ask ourselves, how do I handle this situation? Do I have to be aware of this person's cultural background as well? Yes. There's a great book out there for those of you who work in the international arena, or if you work in a very diverse workplace. It's called Kiss, Bow, or Shake Hands. I'll repeat that for you. Kiss, Bow, or Shake Hands. It's a book that's been around for almost 2 decades, written with the specific intent of American business people who were traveling abroad. However, I tell people in my programs that when you work in a diverse workplace, it's good to know the cultures that people have come from, because it helps you to understand them and their needs. So think about what you would look like. What would you sound like? How would people feel when you have your diplomatic hat on? How do you behave? Are you in touch with your emotional side, being able to be calm in those unexpected situations? Are you the one who can step in when people are having an argument and try to calm them down, get them to take a break? Are you that person? Number 10, we mentioned confidence early on. When you are confident in your career, you are positioning yourself for success. Now, I'm not talking about arrogance, because there's a difference between confidence and arrogance. Arrogance, there's a lot of ego that's involved in arrogance. An arrogant person is someone who tells you how great and wonderful they are and how successful they are and how nothing ever goes wrong with them. They're a little too boastful. But confidence really comes from your core. It's when you know yourself so well. You know what you're capable of doing. You know what you have already done in your career. You're positioning yourself for even greater success. And you've proven yourself to the people around you. And they have that confidence in you as well. I would say, from a leader's perspective, not only how confident are you in yourself, but how are you showing your confidence in others, the people who are working for you on your work team, colleagues of yours who you might be working alongside on a specific project. How are you letting them know that you have confidence in them? Because I will tell you, there are a number of leaders out there who are not willing to share the platform as much. I happen to be one of those people who invites people along for the ride, where I show them that I respect their level of confidence and I encourage that confidence in them. Number 11, there's no better person for humility than Pope Francis, because he has come along as one of the most powerful religious leaders in the world and done things very differently, where the pontiffs prior to him had very special cars and shoes and apartments and garments. He wanted to be among the people. I wrote a blog post a few years back called "Is Humility Hip?" based on Pope Francis's success as a change maker, where people are looking at that role in a very different way. And it all started with him being very humble about how he lived his life, how he lives his life. Humility is the exact opposite of arrogance. And when I work with humble leaders, and I know quite a few that I've had the pleasure of working with, they're the ones who really stand out. They're the ones who always want to know how I'm doing. They're not there to tell me how great and wonderful they are, but they're very quiet. They show their leadership in a very quiet, more humble way. Number 12, I love this image because I would have loved to have been in the room when they took this photograph to see how did they get that woman to flip her hair back like that. When we have appropriate, consistent behavior, it's the opposite of what you see on the screen. We're professionals, and we know what our limits and boundaries are, especially in the professional environment, in the workplace. There are certain things that we can do at home and get away with it, where in the workplace we can't, because we represent our company, even internally to our internal customers. We have to know how to behave and how to respect and act appropriately with each other. I don't know about you, but I don't want to work with people who have temper tantrums. We are intimidated by them. They're not necessarily people who we want to work with, and we feel like we're walking on eggshells around them. What is your behavior like? If you feel you're having an off day, do us all a favor. Tell us you're having an off day. You'll save the people around you a lot of consternation. Well, I don't know. I can't tell what kind of mood he's in today. I'm not sure. If you just say, look, if you're a new parent, look, the baby was colicky last night. I didn't get any sleep. I apologize. I may not be myself today. Please, if I raise my voice, I don't really mean it. I'm just sleep deprived. We oftentimes don't even think that we can do something that simple. The key word here, though, is consistent. That's what people are looking for, the consistency day in and day out. They want to know that they're going to come in and you're not going to throw objects at them, which I know you wouldn't do anyway. Number 13, you all have a variety of highly developed skills. Each and every one of you on the call today, your degrees, certifications, your lived experience, your work knowledge are vastly different from each other's. That's what sets us apart. When we have that certain level of expertise, what do we do with it? Well, we can choose one of two paths, and I've worked with both of these individuals. One, keep it all to yourself and don't share that knowledge or information with anybody else. Have you met a few people like that? I know I'm feeling some nodding of heads that we've all worked with people like that. Listen, it's taken me 20 years to get here. I'm not going to help you lead the way. You're going to have to go through the same hurdles I went through. That is not a professional, in my opinion. A true professional is someone who openly shares that information with others. You want people to grow. You want to help shorten their learning curve. When you go to conferences, come back and share the good news that you've learned with your colleagues, members of your team, with your boss. What are those skills that you possess that you can share more openly with others? And lastly, well packaged. This is part of your own personal style, your own unique and distinctive personal style. I know a lot of workplaces today are relaxing the professional look. What was dressed down Fridays 20 years ago is dressed down every day, depending on what kind of company or organization you work for. However, you can still be polished and pressed even though you're dressed in casual attire. When I go out to a very important client meeting, I dress that part to the nines, especially if it's a prospective client who I want to impress. I want them to know that I represent you. I'm part of your team. I'm a partner with you. When you don't dress that part, again, you could be sabotaging your own success because people may pass you up for other people around you who present themselves better. Now that we've gone through all 12 of the Code of Professional Ethics, I will challenge you to ask yourself, of these 14 traits, just circle those 3 that you believe you already possess, that you do extremely well, better than anybody else. And then if there are 3 traits that you know you could improve on, put an asterisk, a star around it, underline it, circle the whole thing if you have to. Challenge yourself in the next week, in the coming weeks, in the coming months, to be the true professional that you know you are, that you want to present yourself to the world, and focus on your own professional presence. It has been a pleasure presenting this content to you today. We're going to be opening things up for you.
Okay, thanks, Christine. We do have some questions that came in. The first one, with all of the professional code of ethics listed, what would be a great tool to perform an assessment on a team of individuals?
Oh gosh, there are so many assessments. Where do I even begin? Well, there are some tools out there that are great. The DISC profile, for instance, what's nice about the DISC profile is that you can look at people's communication skills, you can look at their managerial style, you can look at their leadership qualities, and so many of these, when we talk about trustworthiness, credibility, are embedded in some of those profiles. And I really like the DISC because it has expanded so much in recent years. It's part of the Wiley companies now, and they've really expanded on it a lot. I've used that with a number of my coaching clients.
Okay, next question. If someone starts to gossip to you, how do you stop them without being rude?
Well, I have to be in the room with you to know what juicy gossip they're talking about. I would say that depending on what the information is, one of our roles is to question. Like, for instance, if they say, oh, that Debbie, she just doesn't like me. You know, every time I see her, she doesn't. You can, that's gossip based on assumptions. And you can turn it into a question and just say, where are you getting the idea that Debbie doesn't like you? So you're turning it back to that person. Well, if I were you, I would consider whether that's a fact or are you making that assumption. So there are ways that we can almost coach people when they're starting to gossip about other people, or they're, depending on what it is, if it's really nasty, bad, juicy stuff, then you just have to say, you know, I really thank you for sharing. I really am not the kind of person who supports gossip like this, I would invite you to really look at the situation a little bit differently than you are and try to open the conversation up. That's what I always try to do. Make it conversational, not just don't buy into it right away. Oh, really? She doesn't like you? Oh, wow. Well, really? Oh, my. Then you're buying into whatever is being said. Sometimes you can question, and other times you can stop people closer in the beginning of the conversation.
Great, thank you. Next question. What advice on professional presence would you give to people who are just starting out their careers?
All of the above. I would say take this, whether you are that young professional or whether you have a young professional who you are working with, I would just say take this professional code of ethics, print it off, walk it through, talk it through, try to live it every moment of every day. Because what I find is that when I was first starting out my career, I was like a giant sponge. I was looking at the people around me and the people who were older than me as my positive role models to see how they did things. The mantra is golden because it reminds you that every step that you take in your career, even when you're starting out, every step that you take, people are watching you, they're observing you for a reason. And I will tell you that reason right now, because young people have that dynamism about themselves, that energy, that yes, I can say I'm dynamic, and yes, I can say I have energy at my age. However, younger people have this innovative spirit that when you really embrace your role as a professional moving forward with your career trajectory in mind, everyone is watching you right now in your career. They're watching you, how you work, how you interact with each other, if you say you're going to do what you do, because we need that energy in managerial roles, in supervisory roles, on project teams. You can control that based on really, truly taking this professional's code of ethics and this mantra and really embracing it starting today.
Okay, next question. On the diplomatic slide, you mentioned maintaining a calmness even when engaged in a heated discussion. Do you have any techniques to help stay calm during those heated situations?
It's one of the oldest tricks in the book. Breathe. I'm not talking about shallow breathing. I'm talking about deep diaphragmatic breathing. Do a Google search on diaphragmatic breathing. There are videos, there are articles. It's one of the best tools for maintaining your composure when you are in those tense moments. I would also say when you look at things from a rational perspective, it's almost like you're physically putting a rational hat on your head to remind yourself that I'm in control of this situation. I'm going to put my best foot forward. I'm going to be a professional through it all. That's what will get you through, that deep breathing. Also paraphrasing what you're hearing. If there are people who are very upset using tense language, try to break it out, get to the bottom of that source of anger or that angst.
Okay, I think we have time for one more. How do you tell someone that the need to be well packaged without insulting their personal style? The person's look is dated. Imagine an 80s banker.
Oh, my. Oh, that's a dreadful image. I remember the 80s, the shoulder pads that were out to here. Wow. All right, now that I've gone through that initial shock, I would say sit down, have an honest and open conversation. When you start from a place of loving kindness and you let that person know that you're sharing that information to help them as they continue to grow as they continue to be of value to the organization. And I'll share a brief example with you. Years ago, there was a young woman who worked with us who had body odor issues. That's a very sensitive topic. We got the oldest person who was a mother figure to sit down and talk to her about this. She had no idea. She bathed every day. She wasn't washing her clothes every day. The next day she came into the office, she was like a totally different person. She became more engaged in her personal look, her attire. If it can be done on a tough topic like that, and it is a sensitive issue of another person's odor being offensive, then talking about ideas regarding their attire would be a lot easier. And again, it comes from, I have some information I want to share with you, and it comes from a place of loving kindness because I care about you, I work with you, I love you, and then just go right into the let's go shopping together. if that is possible, that's always a nice option.
Okay. We did receive a lot of comments about how great this subject was and how great of a job you did, Christine. So I would have to agree with that, but that does conclude our time together. If you would like to learn more about today's topic, we encourage you to contact us about bringing this program on site to your location. We are able to tailor all of our programs to fit your needs. You can contact us at 330-672-3416 or at yourtrainingpartner@kent.edu. I also encourage you to visit our website to see our upcoming open enrollment program, including Each One Teach One program that is delivered at the Educational Service Center in Northeast Ohio. That program is facilitated by Christine. You can see the registration link on your screen, and I do encourage you to register soon as these programs routinely fill. You can join our extensive list of clients and bring Kent State to your organization. We also encourage you to register for our next webinar when we will be discussing moving positively through change with Kent State facilitator Christy Frieden. During this webinar, we will discuss models to help you think differently about change, some tools to help your approach with others and minimize resistance, and also ways to identify people's acceptance of change and how to move them up the ladder. For those attending live, you will be asked to complete a short survey. Please complete this survey so that we can be assured that we are bringing you the most usable and relevant content possible. You will also receive a follow-up email with a link to view the recording of today's webinar. On behalf of Kent State Center for Corporate and Professional Development and our facilitator, Christine Zust, thank you for joining us today and have a great rest of your day.